even though Israel and Iran appear to have stepped back from the brink of all-out war for now. The events of the last couple of days have left many people worried. They're asking, could violent flare-ups between the two adversaries become the new norm? After a fairly rapid exchange of fire, both countries have now agreed to pause military operations. But with Israel promising to strike back at any provocation, and Tehran insisting it will resume strikes if Israel targets Iran or Lebanon, is this just a temporary reprieve? And what does this episode reveal about the red lines shaping the confrontation? We're going to take a look at this and how the situation could affect the possibility of a limited bilateral agreement between the United States and Iran. And to help us answer those questions, we're joined by Sina Azodi, Program Director of Middle East Studies at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. Sina, thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you, Aaron.
So, were you surprised at how quickly both sides backed down after their exchange of fire over the weekend?
I was not surprised, and to many people who were concerned rather that this is, hostilities were going to resume, what I said was I think both sides have a vested interest in trying to avoid further escalation. Iranians had threatened that a violation of ceasefire that was reached in April, a violation of ceasefire in one theater means violation in all fronts. And by attacking Israel directly from their own territory and not through proxies, they attached a political cost to their previous threats. And of course, the Israelis responded because they didn't want to and don't want to allow Iran to rather set the equation. But I was convinced that the US, President Trump, would intervene to ensure that this doesn't flare up again.
Now, let's look at this from Iran's perspective first, if we could. They connected this to Israel's operations in Lebanon, but we've seen Israel carry out strikes in Lebanon for weeks now. So why did Iran all of a sudden take action now?
They had been increasing or intensifying their rhetoric for a while, especially for the past week. They were making the threats that we were going to intervene and we're going to respond. And after a week, they decided to respond. I think they wanted to make sure that the American side and the Israeli side do not underestimate Iran's threats. They don't think that this is a bluff, and this is why they finally acted.
Now, in the moments after the first strikes occurred, Israel appeared to heed Trump's call not to retaliate to those Iranian strikes. But then Israel seemingly went ahead with its own attacks a short time later. What exactly is your read on that?
Well, certainly President Trump wanted to make sure, at least from what we know from public reporting, that he didn't want the fighting to start. I mean, he could have said something else personally to Prime Minister Netanyahu, but this is based on what we know from public reporting. But Israel has its own politics, domestic politics. I saw that Minister Ben-Gvir, the far-right minister, had said that Tehran must burn tonight. And this is why I think the Israelis responded. I also think that, as I said in my previous comments, that they don't want Iran to set a new equation in the ongoing conflict.
Now, we've been talking a little bit about red lines on both sides of the conflict. And in this weekend's exchange, it seems both sides are testing those red lines. So do you think flare-ups like this could become the new normal, with both sides increasingly testing each other's limits?
Of course, in the absence of a political solution and a permanent ceasefire between Iran and the US, anything can happen. Miscalculations can happen. Testing red lines can happen. We've seen that in the past a few weeks. Iranians and the American side have been exchanging fire. The American side is targeting Iranian ships. Iran has been targeting American bases in the region, simply because we don't have a permanent solution. And this, of course, applies to Israel as well. So the sooner that we get that political settlement, the sooner that we reach or finalize that memorandum of understanding between Iran and the U.S., the sooner we're going to have a sense of normalcy in the region.
Yeah, and of course, as long as this conflict is going on, it is testing the relationship between Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump. And U.S. media are reporting that cracks may be beginning to show in that close relationship between the two. So how credible do you think those reports are?
I mean, they could be true, but there could also be some deception. A few days before the start of war on February 28th, there were reports in the media that the American side and the Israeli side have disagreements on how to deal with Iran. And then all of a sudden, we saw what happened on 28th. So it could be deception. It could genuinely be true. President Trump is pursuing his own path of diplomacy with Iranians. We know that we are close to an agreement. President Trump, that's what he has said. Iranian side has also said that they're close to a deal, but the Israeli objectives are not, rather, they don't share the same objective with the U.S. And this is why I think President Trump said yesterday, I think to Financial Times, that the Israelis have to accept a deal that he reaches with Iranians.
Yeah, that's something we've been reading about here too as well. Trump keeps insisting that we're close to a deal. Now, did this rapid de-escalation in the fighting show that there is room for some type of limited deal between Washington and Tehran directly?
I think, as I said, we're very close to that agreement or that memorandum of understanding. And based on what I've seen on the public reporting again, most of the issues have been resolved. The main sticking issue at this point, based on what I've seen, is the unfreezing of Iranian assets that the Iranians are, because of the mistrust in the U.S. And the possibility of the U.S. going back on its agreement, they want some of their own assets to be unfrozen at the beginning of the agreement, and later some more of it. To which the American side has, based on what I've seen, has rejected. So I think this is the main outstanding issue at the moment. Again, this is public reporting.
All right. Now, a question we've been wondering about is what outcome do you think worries Israel more? A renewed war with Iran, continued escalation, or a U.S.-Iran agreement that leaves Tehran's nuclear capability largely intact?
I think rather the latter, because, and we saw what happened under the JCPOA, and the Israelis really didn't like it. Prime Minister Netanyahu called it a historic mistake. He tried to undermine it. And I think that at this point, he will also be unhappy, at least privately, with President Trump if the president reaches an agreement with Iranian, for a number of reasons. Unfreezing of Iranian assets will give a boost to the Iranian economy. The Israelis, I don't think they will like that. It will also allow Iran to maintain some nuclear capability, as you mentioned. And overall, I think that a rapprochement between Iran and the U.S. doesn't serve the Israeli interest generally.
So that kind of begs the question, if a deal like that is struck, what options would Israel have?
Well, with any other president, I think would be a different story. But with President Trump and the close relationship that the prime minister has with President Trump, and the full support that the president has given prime minister of Israel so far, I don't think that he may publicly remain quiet and keep his complaints rather privately, because of the, again, as I said, the relationship and the friendship that they have. It's the President Trump's character and unorthodox way of presidency. We saw some of the exchanges, rather impolite exchanges between them, that the president had said that at least allegedly had said to prime minister that he's out of jail, out of prison because of President Trump's efforts. So again, this would not be possible under any other U.S. president, but this president is different. He doesn't carry the office of the presidency like other American presidents.
All right, and so we've seen this de-escalation after this weekend's flare-up. What signals should we watch in the coming days to understand whether that this calm situation is likely to hold?
I think, first of all, we should look at the rhetoric coming from Iran, coming from Israel, and coming from the United States, and whether if Iranians decide to escalate, and whether Israelis will decide to continue their operations in Lebanon. That really matters for Iranians for both strategic reasons. They don't want to be dragged into a yet another conflict with Israel in the future. So they want some skirmishes now to kind of maintain the peace in the future. And also because of the ideological connection of the Shias in Lebanon and the constituency that the Islamic Republic supports, and they're very much connected ideologically to the Shias of Lebanon. So for that matter, I think we should see how Israel acts, how President Trump acts, and how Tehran signals its intentions and how it behaves.
All right, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. That was Sina Azodi, Program Director of Middle East Studies at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you for having me. Good to be with you.
And if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe. I'm Aaron Tilton, Berlin. Thanks for watching.